Hello and welcome to the Reviews Brothers. I love my Quest VR headset thing, whatever they call it these days. It lets me stab people mercilessly, climb mountains and get vertigo, and play with furries without the need to leave my house. But some of the best games by far are the shooters, letting you feel like a regular John Wick and taking down punks with a swift bullet to the head. I've always been a fan of FPS games and they really translate well to the Quest 2. But of course most of my favourites are the old 90s shooters like Doom, Quake and Half Life, and that's where Team Beef comes in. Team Beef is a group of modders who have taken it upon themselves to convert some of the best first-person games ever to work on the Quest 2, and man, the results are just incredible, and I would honestly say that the games that they're releasing for free are a reason alone to get yourself a Quest 2. There are some caveats though. You will need to have side quests installed on your computer to install these games and own a legit copy of each one, shown here in the video, in order to copy the files you need across. But it is incredibly easy to do and well worth the short amount of time to do so. So that's what I want to do for this video, take you on a little tour and show you the wonderful world of Team Beef and why I love them so much. Oh, and I would like to point out that I have no affiliation with Team Beef. I'm just a massive fan of their work and love each and every one of the team for their hard work and frankly incredible ports that they're putting out that actually put a lot of other developers' efforts to shame. Anyway, how about I shut the hell up, you press that subscribe button and we take a look at some games. Let's start with QuestZDoom, which, as you likely guessed, is for all your Doom needs. Well, Doom and Doom 2 that is. This is an incredible program that lets you play both Doom and Doom 2 in full VR, and what's more is that it supports almost every mod you can throw at it, but more on that in a bit. The controls here are spot on, and you use the thumbsticks to move, and you aim and shoot as you'd expect. Everything is fully customizable, so you can make sure to have the control setup that works for you. You can even adjust your movement speed, field of view, and just about everything else you would ever need to. Playing Doom and Doom 2 in VR is great fun, even without any mods. The only thing that looks a bit strange are your weapons, which still use the same 2D sprites as the base game, so they cut off at the same places, but I guess that makes sense. However, there are a load of options for you to add 3D weapon models, and this is a must. Every weapon in the game has been given a 3D model that's fully animated and even includes reload animations where appropriate. You can even change the enemies to 3D models. This is cool for the base game, but they don't have a ton of animation. However, it does help to make things a little bit more immersive. I would say if you're playing just the base game, this is the way to do it, as the 3D models are a lot of fun. However, remember how I just said that the mods still work? Well, that includes the awesome Brutal Doom mod, which you already know from the footage being shown. The Brutal Doom mod is just incredible, and playing it in VR is honestly my favourite way to play Doom now. You can't have the 3D enemies in this mode, but that really doesn't matter, as the increased gore, location-specific damage and moody lighting coupled with the awesome metal soundtrack are sure to get you pumping. The game is so fast-paced and everything just runs so smoothly that you'll be blowing enemies to pieces and having the time of your life while you're doing it. On the QuestZDoom launcher homepage, you can also download dozens of extra mods and map packs directly through the app itself. These include things like the TNT and Plutonia experiment add-ons, and a load of other fan-made ones that add hundreds of new maps, enemies, weapons, sounds, and more. You can even add your own mods that you've downloaded by copying them over in SideQuest, and they'll appear in the menus. And yes, it does mean you can play the Castlevania, Evil Dead, Mario, Sonic and Zelda mods in full VR. It really is incredible. And just when you thought it couldn't get any better, you can even add other games that use the engine here, like Heretic, which also has its own 3D models to use. You can even run Chex Quest games through this, if you want to murder some serial slime in VR. The amount of options here is just amazing, and there's no way I can go through them all. The menus are very easy to navigate, and you can turn your mods on and off as often as you want. The app even tells you when certain mods are incompatible with each other, so you know which ones are causing the game not to work. This really is one of my go-to games on the Quest, and I never get tired of playing new Doom maps in full VR. Even though I've sunk a ton of hours into this, I've already barely scratched the surface with the combinations of available mods, texture packs, weapons and more. This, for me, is the definitive way to play Doom. Amazingly, Team Beef also ported Doom 3 over to the Quest. In case you aren't aware, Doom 3 is more focused on horror and atmosphere, though it's still packed with action. Most of the game is shrouded in darkness with horrific monsters hiding in the shadows waiting to jump out at you. And, you'll never guess, but playing in VR makes the whole experience so much better. Once again, it's the full game, as long as you already own it, and it runs perfectly on the Quest 2 here. One hand holds your gun, and the other can be used either to two-hand your weapon for more accuracy, or you can hold a flashlight, which is an essential piece of kit in the dark Mars base. Also, when you're interacting with the computer consoles, on the PC version you normally have to use the mouse cursor of course, but here you literally just poke at things with your hands like you would do in real life. It works well, but I did sometimes have trouble lining myself up with things, though I was playing this sat down, so maybe I just need to get my fat ass off the sofa. There also were times where I could see my shoulder of the character model when I don't think you should have done, but again I'm pretty sure this is because I was sat down and hadn't changed any of the settings to accommodate for this. In fact, you know what, I'm pretty certain that is what the problem was. Playing Doom 3 in VR really is a great way to play it. The atmosphere and jump scares here are all heightened, and getting a real sense of scale when the huge enemies come thundering towards you really can create some brown pants moments. The game looks fantastic still, and seeing it all up close and personal in VR never gets old. I haven't tried out any mods with this, so I'm not sure if they're compatible, and I don't think it's compatible with the BFG edition of the game either, or the Resurrection of Evil add-on. But the game on its own is more than enough to keep you entertained and is a hell of a lot of fun in VR. I'm about halfway through it at the moment, and you can bet your ass that I'm going back to finish it. As we all know, after Doom, ID gave us Quake, once again revolutionising the FPS genre, and yes, our friends at Team Beef were kind enough to also port this to the Quest. It uses the same control scheme as the Doom games, and everything here runs flawlessly at a solid frame rate with smooth controls and accurate aiming. Once again, playing through Quake in VR really makes the game that I've played 1,000 times feel brand new, and seeing the monsters up close is just fantastic. As all the weapons are already 3D models, they're the same classic ones from the original game, and it just looks great. I think this is using the Dark Places Quake engine, which has some really good high-res textures, and the lighting here is giving the whole thing a gothic theme a real boost. And once again, like in Doom 3, seeing the enemies coming at you from the shadows is always great. But it's even better when you blow them to bits with a rocket launcher. I have it on pretty good authority that you can use mods here too, though I wasn't able to get the ones I had to work, specifically my favourite mod, which is Quake Horror Show, but I'm fairly certain that this is a me problem, and that if I spend more time figuring out how to load them in properly, I could get it to work, but I did find it quite fiddly with the on-screen keyboard you have to use, so I just gave up. Also, the game does support online multiplayer, and I logged on to give it a go. I was the only one there when I played, and for some reason any pickups that I found were just crazy bright colour cubes, and they were clearly glitched out. But to be fair, I only tried this out as a curiosity and probably won't ever play online anyway. As with every other game so far, the controls here are great and everything runs at a perfect frame rate, and there's no better feeling than turning a grunt into a pile of blood and guts with the axe after you've grabbed a quad damage power up. This is a game that really benefits from surround sound available on the Quest 2 as well. Hearing enemies growling and walking around behind you is great, and while this isn't really a game that's ever going to scare you, there is a definite sense of dread at times when you're exploring narrow gothic corridors with low health, and you can hear some particularly nasty enemies just round the corner. Once again, Team Beef did a fantastic job with the port here, and as with every game here, if you're a fan of the original, you definitely need to try this out in VR, as it really does change things a lot. Quake 2 is a very different game to the first one, seeing you battle the Strogg army on their home planet, and although when I first played it way back when on the PC, I was a little disappointed that it didn't have the same enemies and styles as the first game, I soon came to realise that Quake 2 is another shooter filled with a ton of cool enemies, levels and weapons. And yes, I know I'm sounding like a broken record, but once again, Team Beef have done an incredible job with this port, giving the game a new lease of life. The graphics here are fantastic and I really love this old style. The team have ensured that the game runs smoothly and at the highest resolutions. The models and textures here all look great, and once again seeing some of the monsters up close really gives you that sense of scale that just can't be had in any other way of playing the game. This time round you have mission objectives which are pretty simple, but you can easily check them with a press of a button, and of course almost all of the controls are customizable here too. For the most part the default controls work fine, but as a left-handed person I do always have to go into the options and move things around a bit, though this is never really a problem, but I do find the wording for which hand you want to use a bit confusing and end up having to just try all the options until I find one that works for me. I did have a bit of an issue with this one though, in that I couldn't find any options for smooth turning. I prefer playing these games sat down, so I use the thumbstick to turn rather than just physically turning. Every other game here has smooth turning, which means that when you turn, you actually see your character rotate, whereas here I couldn't seem to find the option for this and it only had snap turning, which means that your character just sort of teleports 45 degrees when you move the stick left or right. This is very jarring and I really don't like it in any game. Now, I could be wrong here, but I really couldn't find the option to change this, which was quite annoying, especially as every other game so far has had the option. Also, when I was turning on the laser sight for the gun, it appears in the middle of the screen and just looks a bit crappy. To be fair, I haven't looked to see if I'm running the latest version of this game, but I got it back in 2022, so I'm guessing there hasn't been much of an update since then, as the team have been busy releasing other titles. Having said that though, this is still a fantastic port of a fantastic game, and if you have it, then you really need to play it in VR. And yes, Quake 3 also got a port to the Quest, offering some great arena-based deathmatch combat that you can even play online with friends. Now, just so you know, I don't actually own the full game of Quake 3, so I was only able to play the demo version. But as you'd expect, it is still a great port, and I was able to get a good idea of how it would all work, which of course is that it works incredibly well. Again, the move to VR really makes the awesome design and style of the game pop. The weapons all look great, and the controls and frame rate are of course super smooth. I was only able to do a handful of one-on-one matches, but these were all really fun, and I actually ended up doing each one of them a few times and just keeping on upping the difficulty. Being in VR, it makes the aiming so much easier, and some of the weapons that aren't that fun to use in the PC version are much more usable here. The railgun especially is a lot of fun to use. This isn't my favourite arena shooter, that will always be Unreal Tournament, hint hint Team Beef. But this one is still a ton of fun to play and has some really chaotic battles. You can even play it online with friends, which I did actually try, and actually found another person on a server, which I should have recorded but didn't. That was dumb. But yeah, this game is available in full for your Quest if you own the original game, and it would be an absolute blast to play with some friends. The last id game, is it id or ID? I keep switching. Anyway, the last one that Team Beef have to offer, that I have at least, is Return to Castle Wolfenstein, which in its original iteration is a fantastic shooter where you play as the legendary BJ Blazkowicz during World War II. You're captured by the Nazis and have to escape your cell and of course fight your way through hordes of Nazis, eventually discovering that they've been doing some very naughty experiments with the occult, and soon enough you're fighting an army of out-of-control undead warriors, as well as that cheeky scamp Hitler. This is a really great game that offers a huge challenge. For me, it's definitely the most difficult out of any of the games in this video, but it is a fair challenge and not a bunch of bullshit, most of the time anyway. You'll battle through enemy bases and towns, as well as ancient crypts and more. And you'll never guess what? The VR port from Team Beef does the game a load of justice. Once again, the game is 100% faithful to the original, but converted to work on the Quest 2 with super smooth motion controls and a great frame rate. The graphics are all high res and the models look fantastic, with some excellent weapons for you to use. As it's a World War II game, here you get a few sniper rifles too, and you can even use the scopes by holding the gun up to your eye like you would in real life, and you'll start looking down the scope, allowing you to take out Nazi bastards from a distance. This is really cool and lets you realise just how shaky your hands really are. My only real complaint with the controls is that to aim with any gun turret, you have to move your head to move the turret, and it follows what you're looking at, rather than just using your hands. It does kind of work, but it never felt natural. This is only a small complaint though, as there aren't many areas with these. Other than that, once again, this is just another fantastic port. The atmosphere is excellent, and yes, playing in VR does really change how it all feels, giving you a much better aiming system, as well as being far more immersive. Team Beef continued to bring us some of the best FPS games ever made to the Quest with Half-Life. Here you play as Gordon Freeman, a regular scientist who gets caught in an experiment gone wrong and has to save the world from interdimensional beings. Standard science stuff, really. Now, I can't really tell you too much about this one, unfortunately, as for me, I get to play the intro of the game, but then I get to the experiment at the start of the intro bit, and the game somehow teleports me to the training level and I just can't progress. I don't know if this is a glitch or if I haven't put the correct files in the correct place. If anyone can shed any light on this, please do let me know. I feel like this could be a me problem though, as there are plenty of videos online of the full playthrough of this version, and I just need to take the time to see what's gone wrong and maybe do some updates. But anyway, from what I have played, the game is still a lot of fun. As you'd expect, the controls are decent, though I did find I had a bit of trouble with the long jump, which you have to do by crouching and then jumping. It didn't work every time for me. Also, climbing ladders here is actually a real pain in the ass. It is doable, but you seem to have to jump onto the ladder but not press any buttons while you're in the air, and then just directly press the direction you want to climb in once you're on the ladder. It doesn't feel intuitive at all, but it kind of works. I just don't know why you can't walk up to the ladder. What's cool though is that you do have to physically swing the crowbar to use it, and as anyone who knows Half-Life will know, you'll be using it a lot, and smashing stuff is really satisfying. The gunplay is spot on too, and it's easy to switch between your regular shots and alternate fire modes. Of course, the graphics are exactly as they were, and at a very high resolution. They're showing their age a bit, but this is still one of the best looking versions of the game that I've played. I haven't actually played through Half-Life in a very long time, and just playing the short amount of it that I was able to has made me really want to go back and play it again all the way through, and I know that this would be the perfect way to do it. Aside from those few small niggles, this really is a fantastic port, and once again, well worth getting. Even if you've never played Half-Life before, this is still an amazing game, and VR would be a great way to experience it. And finally for today, here is the most recent Team Beef release, at the time of recording anyway, and that is Star Wars Jedi Knight 2 Jedi Outcast, and oh boy is this good! It's your standard Star Wars story, the Empire being a bunch of dicks, and you've got to murder as many of them as you can and blow up their shit. And there is no better way to do it than in VR. You play as Kyle Katarn, and you start the game infiltrating bases in some huge levels. You'll be blasting stormtroopers left, right and centre, and doing this in VR is just so good. The weapons feel great, and though I did find that as they're laser weapons, the bullets have some travel time, which does make it hard to accurately shoot enemies, or there's times where you swear you should be hitting them, but you aren't. However, this isn't really anything to do with the quality of the port, it's just how the game works, no matter how you play it. But shooting stormtroopers does never get old, and the combat is fast and frantic. As mentioned, the levels themselves are massive, and each one can easily take an hour or so to beat if you're crap like me. You do get a load of objectives, and I did find that some of them were quite confusing to navigate, but again, this has nothing to do with the port, that's just how the game is. Exploring the levels is great fun though, especially as I'm a Star Wars fan, so seeing all the familiar scenery, computer terminals and characters up close was an absolute blast. But I know what you want to know, and yes, you have proper lightsaber control. Unfortunately, I ran out of storage while I was recording, so it didn't actually capture these bits. Sorry. However, if you want to live out your dream of being a Jedi, then you need this game. The lightsaber combat is amazing. You can dismember enemies and even use your force powers by throwing your lightsaber across the room, decapitating fools that are miles away from you. It's just so much fun. Your lightsaber also causes damage to the scenery, and you really do feel like you're doing some real damage when you're swinging it around. I'm pretty sure you already know this, but this has always been a great game, and playing it in VR is just so much fun. It really is a crime that there isn't an official Star Wars game for the Quest that comes anywhere near to close how good this port is. So yeah, whether you're a Star Wars fan or not, this game has it all. Great gameplay, fantastic gun and lightsaber combat, and a decent challenge. It's a must-have for any Quest owner. So there you go, a brief overview of the incredible work that Team Beef have been doing. So far, everything they've touched really has turned to gold. I can't recommend their work enough. The care and detail they put into all their projects is just fantastic, and I'm just so excited to see what they come out with next. I would love to see them bring games like Duke Nukem 3D, Witch Haven, Blood, and the original Dark Forces, and maybe even something like Terminator Future Shock to the Quest. And I have seen that they are currently working on a Quake 4 port, which I'm very excited about. If, for some reason, you have a Quest and you don't have any of these ports, then you really need to change that. They're all incredible, and the games themselves are available for pretty cheap nowadays, so getting the files you need to play them shouldn't be a problem. It only takes a few minutes to get each one set up, and honestly, they are some of the best games on the system. Anyway, I'll stop gushing now, so you can go play their games. On screen, you'll be able to see where you can follow me, so why not do so? I've got loads of cool content for everyone to enjoy. Now, all that's left for me to say is thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.